he didn't know that he was going to look just like James. So this first time he sees him, it's like he's looking at his best friend again. If you want to put Harry and Voldemort against each other on their strength levels, it comes down to like, what is strength to you and what is power and what do you draw power from? We're getting deep here. How does this always happen? Hi everyone, and welcome back to Muggles and Mocha. Today we're covering Chapter 3 of Book 3. And at first I was a little afraid of covering this chapter on its own because technically it doesn't feel like that much happens, but once I got started writing about it and talking about it and just thinking about it, I'm excited for today. I'm excited to cover this chapter all about the night bus. I have my book ready here and I hope you do too. Also have the rant stick. And for all of you newbies out there, hello, I'm Madison, and this Harry Potter book club is connected to my editing website, madisonkdarby.com. You can find out more about me there and my social media handles and all of that fun stuff. And if you like this video today, feel free to share it, give it a like, or subscribe to my YouTube channel. We would love to have you around, and yeah, let's just keep growing our Harry Potter fan club over here. Guys, last week I realized that I made a very big mistake. I forgot our traditional Harry Potter mug that I bring out every time we start a new book. It's my always mug. Oh, there it is. See, like, it's a color changing mug, has Lily and Snape on here. It's one of my favorites, and I usually have it at the beginning of every book, but I forgot because I had a fancy teacup, so there we go. Okay, we're just gonna jump right into it, so let's get started with Chapter 3. Last week we left off with Harry storming out of the house after he has inflated Aunt Marge by accident, but come on, like, let's not pretend that it wasn't satisfying for all of us. But this is one of Harry's darkest moments so far for him, personally, in my opinion. Which is sad because Harry has already had some bad experiences, you know. He found out what really happened to his parents. He faced off with Voldemort. He fought a snake in the Chamber of Secrets last year. Like, I'm not saying that those are not dark, and obviously, like, there's a lot more action and danger involved with those things. But right now, mentally for Harry, I think that this is the darkest place he's encountered so far because he is alone. And those other times he at least had support, friends by his side, people who were there for him. But right now he is just literally all alone. Like, Hedwig isn't even there. Come on. And something else that's really scary for him is that he feels like he's a stranger to this world that he's grown up in. You know, even though he was raised in the Muggle world, he now feels more at home in the Wizarding One and safer in the Wizarding One. So being alone in the Muggle world at this point is more frightening to him than being alone in the Wizarding world, even though the Wizarding world is who he is on the run from. So while Harry is panicking, he sees a figure in the alleyway, and we know who it is. Sirius Black is here in Little Whinging, which is such a coincidence when you think about it, and dangerous and rash. Like, Sirius is on the run at this point, and like I said at the beginning of this book, I kind of want to spend some time looking at all of these events, or at least the ones that he's involved in, through Sirius's perspective, because I think it's just a really interesting point of view to consider, because we're always in Harry's head, and Harry does not know the things that we know now. So I want to take a second and kind of think about Sirius Black. Now, for us who have read the books, we know that Sirius Black has broken out of prison for one reason, and that is to avenge the Potters, his best friends, by killing Peter Pettigrew, the one who betrayed them, the one who betrayed Sirius, everybody. That is what is driving him at this point in the story. So with that being said, why is he here now? Why did he choose to come here? I mean, he hasn't been out of Azkaban for that long. If Harry just now heard about it on the Muggle News, I'm guessing it's been a couple of weeks. It was when Ron was in Egypt, so it hasn't been that long since he's been out of prison, and yet here he is, in dog form, just wandering around where Harry lives. Personally, I think this shows the danger and desperation behind his mission in a different way. Like, Sirius doesn't know what's going to happen to him with Peter Pettigrew. He doesn't know if he'll be successful, and even if he is successful, he doesn't know if he's going to get caught or not. Is he going to die? Like, there are a lot of what ifs with the scenario with him being on the run. Kind of ironic because at the same time Harry is on the run, or considers himself to be so, when Sirius first sees him. So Harry and Sirius are kind of in the same boat here, albeit on very different scales. I just think that that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But with all of the unknowns in Sirius's situation, this could be the only chance he has to see Lily and James's son, which is the reason that Voldemort came to attack them in the first place. Like, it could be one of the only moments he has to see his godson. And if we know Sirius is willing to rush into action. He's willing to do what needs to be done. And if this is the only chance he's going to have to see Harry, I'm actually not surprised that he takes it. And man, just thinking from his point of view, what would he have been feeling when he first saw Harry? Like, he sees the spitting image of James. The last time he saw Harry, he was like a little over a year old. You know, he didn't know that he was going to look just like James. So this first time he sees him, it's like he's looking at his best friend again. And you know, in the movie, they try to make the scene really creepy, which I don't blame them for, because, you know, in the movies, we're looking at things through Harry's perspective as well. And at this point, Harry is scared. It's dark. He's alone. There's creepy swings blowing in the wind. They just do a lot to build up the creepy atmosphere. And then you see Sirius, and this dog barks at Harry in the movies, which, you know, I'm not like downing the movies here. I know that they were trying to build a suspenseful atmosphere with all of this, but it made me wonder, like, would Sirius have done that in the book? We don't learn if he makes a sound or not. I don't think he does, because Harry is still a little confused about what he saw there. But I imagine he would want to. I mean, if you saw your best friend who had been murdered, not your best friend, but their kid, and it looks just like them, I would want to call out. I would want to cry or yell or something. So when I watch that part of the movie, I kind of think of it more from that perspective than like a dog trying to scare Harry. Harry, however, is obviously scared of what he's seeing. He trips and falls backward with his wand in the air, and he hails the night bus, which is a big, violently purple bus. That is how it's described. I don't know if any of you out there have listened to the Potterless podcast by Mike Schubert. He really stuck on this violently purple color. He made fun of it every chance he got, which it is a funny adjective. And I want to stop here for a second and tell you that the night bus is what my article is all about this week. I go into the history of the night bus, why it was created, what helped J.K. Rowling come up with this idea, where its name came from. It's got a lot of cool information about that stuff on there. And I also did a brief literary analysis into what the night bus represents in this moment for Harry and throughout the rest of the series, because of course we've got to bring some English, grammar, literature, nerddom into this whenever we can. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about the night bus, I do have that article linked in the description box below. Now that the night bus is here, Harry meets Stan Shunpike, who is the conductor of the night bus here, and strangely enough, has a very important role to play later on in the series. Right now when we meet him, he's just the conductor of the night bus, a young guy, has a great accent. I will not try to replicate it, but eventually he's brought into the Death Eater's ranks through the Imperius Curse. We see Harry talk about this a couple of times, defending Stan to the Minister of Magic, Rufus Scrimgeour, in the 6th book? Yes, the 6th book, because they have imprisoned Stan Shunpike because he's just basically trying to make himself look cool in front of his friends and acts like he knows what's going on with the Death Eaters, gets sent to Azkaban, but in the process, the Death Eaters then use him as a tool and use the Imperius Curse on him, and we see him later on in the book series. In the 7th book, we have the 7 Harrys, which is the escape plan that the Order of the Phoenix uses to transport Harry to the Burrow. So everyone's using Polyjuice Potion. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're familiar with it. But in the books, Stan is the reason that Harry is identified, that the rest of the Death Eaters begin to suspect that he is the true Harry, because Harry refuses to stun him. They're being chased on broomsticks, and if Harry were to stun him, he would have fallen to his death. So Harry decides to use Expelliarmus instead. And you know, okay, we're gonna go on a rant for a second. People make fun of Harry for his Expelliarmus shenanigans. He uses that spell a lot, uses it against Voldemort, and uses it in this instance against Stan. Personally, I find it very admirable. I think that that's one of Harry's best qualities, that he would rather disarm than just straight up hurt someone. But I think that people take advantage of this moment, talking about the Stan Shunpike situation with the Seven Harrys, as Harry being too soft. We see that Harry is willing to hurt people. Not that that should be like a quality we look for in a person, but I don't know. I feel like that's what people want Harry to do. We see him use the Cruciatus Curse later on out of anger. We see him use a number of spells. And so I wouldn't use this issue with Stan Shunpike to say that Harry is like a weak individual or anything like that. I actually think it makes him a strong individual because he realizes that Stan is not in his right mind. He cares about him and he doesn't want him to be hurt in the Death Eater's plans. So for him to use Expelliarmus there, you know, like people get on to him for that in the books and in real life, I feel like. But I respect every time that Harry does that. I don't think it's a weak thing to do. I think it is stronger than flinging the Avada Kedavra curse at everyone. You know, if you want to put Harry and Voldemort against each other on their strength levels, it comes down to like, what is strength to you and what is power and what do you draw power from? We're getting deep here. How does this always happen? But when it comes down to it, like what Voldemort draws power from is a desire for power itself and a fear of losing that power or even a fear of death, while Harry draws his strength from friendship and from the desire to protect others and to sacrifice himself for other people. So like in the end, what is the stronger source of power? And I think it's the same place that Harry draws from when he uses Expelliarmus instead of killing people. That is just my opinion, but obviously that's something that's going to be coming back later, so we'll talk about this a lot more in the future. So anyway, Stan Shunpike in this moment is a funny guy, a cool guy. He is not under the sway of the Death Eaters at this point, so we can just hold on to that for as long as we can. Harry has the chance to take on a new identity. He uses Neville Longbottom's name because, remember, he's on the run. And we get to see the night bus in action. And even though this bus is like obviously really neat, I think I would rather travel in any other magical way. I think it works well for what it was invented for, and you know, shameless plug, you can find out about that in the description box with the article, but I don't think it would be my number one choice for how I would travel in the wizarding world. I do have a question for you guys. I wonder how they see witches and wizards who are flagging them down. Like Harry just falls and like throws his arm out and they see that and they stop. And they say that they were in Wales before they picked up Harry. And I did a little bit of research because I am not familiar with the terrain and geography of the United Kingdom. So I looked to see how close Wales was to Surrey, which is where Harry lives. And it's a good little ways, like they're not close to each other. So does it like throw up a signal that the driver or Stan can see? Because they get to Harry like immediately. So I don't know, I'm just wondering how that works. I couldn't find anything about that in my research. If you have some thoughts, feel free to leave a comment. How do you think the night bus sees people to pick them up? Because if you think about like Hogwarts and stuff, there's people raising wands all the time. So how do they tell the difference? Obviously from this situation, we see that sometimes they can't, but yeah, what do you think? I think I'm gonna go with signal. I think it's some sort of signaling method where it's not that they see them from miles and miles away, but it's some sort of like GPS locating system. I don't know. While Harry is on the night bus, he finds out a little bit more about Sirius Black. He's learned a tiny bit about him from the Muggle news, but now we get the wizarding perspective and learn all of the details of the story, which is that Sirius is considered to be a mass murderer, a follower of you-know-who. He killed a wizard and 12 Muggles, so 13 people in all, and has been in Azkaban, the wizarding prison, which Harry doesn't know much about at this point. He just knows that it's a horrible place that he doesn't want to be. And now here Sirius Black is, escaped 13 years later, 12 years later. And this mention of Sirius Black and reading the Daily Prophet news article makes me excited for next week, because our article is going to be really fun, because it's how J.K. Rowling uses foreshadowing in the next chapter, or sows the seeds of the different plot points that are going to make the end reveal of this book so awesome. So we're going to identify each one of those and talk about how she subtly uses them all in the same chapter. Dan and Ernie establish also the mad thing, that everyone thinks that Sirius Black is mad, and that after all these people died that he was just laughing in the street, which this is an important thing to establish, because it shapes how Harry views this figure when he meets him, like going into it thinking that Sirius Black is this insane mass murderer. It just adds into our picture of this individual, and to come up with ideas of who we think he is before it is revealed that nothing is as it seems. I expect that it was extremely traumatic, and that Sirius was experiencing intense mental anguish at the point when Peter Pettigrew did what he did. The night bus finally arrives at the Leaky Cauldron in London, and I mentioned this in the article, but I think it's really interesting that this is the place that Harry chooses to go, because like we mentioned, he's in a dark place, he's alone, he's lost, and the place that he chooses to go is the first magical place he ever ventured to, with Hagrid when he turned 11. So the fact that he still views this as a home, kind of, or the first place that he felt he entered the magical world, is really special to me. And who should be there but stinking Cornelius Fudge? Man, that would have been such a shock, because Harry knows what Fudge looks like since he did see him in the last book. But Harry doesn't have to be scared for long, because he finds out that they've taken care of Aunt Marge, and Harry just gets off scot-free. And if you remember, Marge was inflated, but it says that she has been punctured. What does this entail? I know that they must have used a spell, but he doesn't say a punctured charm or anything like that. He's like, she's been punctured, so everything's fine. And Harry is just in shock, which I wish I could remember how I felt at this moment reading this, because I'm sure I was in shock too, because they just almost expelled Harry last year because of a stinking flying pudding. So this should have been the last straw, but we know that it is because of Sirius Black, and above all things, the Ministry is just concerned that Harry's gonna get tracked down and killed by this guy. So they'd rather have him under their thumb and safe than out on the run. And so it's okay, forget what he's done. We've just got to save this kid. He asks Harry to stay at the Leaky Cauldron, which just, yes, would that not just be the best 3 weeks of your life? So Harry is going to be at the Leaky Cauldron in the next chapter, as we know, and he's not in trouble, so the Fudge just leaves him there. And then we get this tragic moment that I forgot about, where Harry just straight up asks the Minister of Magic to sign his permission slip for Hogsmeade. If you're the Minister of Magic, I would just sign the thing. This poor kid, you're keeping him under lock and key. He has no idea he's being hunted down. The least you can do. I mean, you've already justified him in the name of the law, where he's not going to get in trouble for all of this stuff. So sign the permission slip. I'm sad that Fudge didn't do it. That would have been sweet. And it would have probably endeared him to me for at least a little bit longer in the series before he just loses his mind. And with that, Harry is safe at the Leaky Cauldron. So let's read this last paragraph. Harry sat on his bed for a long time, absent-mindedly stroking Hedwig. The sky outside the window was changing rapidly from deep, velvety blue to cold, steely gray, and then slowly to pink shot with gold. Harry could hardly believe that he'd left Privet Drive only a few hours ago, that he wasn't expelled, and that he was now facing 3 completely Dursley-free weeks. It's been a very weird night, Hedwig, he yawned. And without even removing his glasses, he slumped back onto his pillows and fell asleep. So, Harry's safe. He is in the wizarding world. He's gone from the Dursleys. Don't you just get annoyed at the Dursley chapters in these books? it just gets to a point where they're funny, and like obviously important stuff happens later, especially in the 5th book. Like, I love A Peck of Owls, that chapter where you learn more about Petunia Dursley and her relationship with her sister and whatever. But still, you spend this whole time waiting for Harry to get to Hogwarts, or just the Wizarding World in general, so I'm glad we're there. So we have another chapter down. Let me know in the comments what you think about this chapter, or if you read the article, what you think about the night bus and how it functions within these books. Next time, like I said, we're going to be talking about Harry's time in Diagon Alley, meeting up with Ron and Hermione, and all the different plot points that are set up in the coming chapter, because there are a lot of seeds sown in this next chapter, so we're going to cover every single one of them. So I guess I'll see you guys next time in Diagon Alley. I wish I could go there in real life, to Universal Studios, because that just sounds lovely right now. It's currently snowing outside, which is pretty and all that, but I'm gonna need some warmer weather here soon because I am not built for the cold. Anyway, cheers. My coffee mug is kind of turning dark now. It's really old, so you can like still see a lot of it, but anyway. I hope that you've enjoyed Muggles and Mocha today. I'll see you next time. Bye!